Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Pink Lady Presents It Ain't Over Till You Say It's Over. I am absolutely in awe of the gentleman that is on our show today, Dove, as our guest, Father Tom Gibbons. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Father Tom, you began your journey by being a young man in college, and you did something, you wrote a blog, and it was called Kicking and Screaming. Now, what was that about?
Well, I think actually, it goes back a little bit farther than that.
Okay.
I was in college in Baltimore, Maryland, and
Right.
I graduated from Loyola. What was then Loyola College in Baltimore is now Loyola University in Baltimore,
okay.
Maryland. Not to be confused with all the other Loyolas,
right.
around the country. After college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did this program called Jesuit Volunteer Corps in the mid-'90s, and I was in Phoenix, Arizona.
With immigration, yes.
At first, I worked at a Catholic elementary school, and then I went to El Paso, Texas, and then was working with immigrants in El Paso along the border. And around that time, I started feeling God tap me on the shoulder and say, I've got another job for you. And my reaction was very much like that of Jonah. God says, go here, and I go here.
Okay. A little bit of a battle over there.
A little bit of a, kind of a wrestling with God, which is
well, you were young. He understood.
Very young, yes. I sometimes think God knew, all right, I need Tom to join the priesthood, to start his priesthood at age 34, so I need to ask him at age 23, because I know it's going to take him that long to get with the program a little bit. So but I'm also very grateful for that time, and I'm very grateful. I dated a lot, I owned a house, I had a great career as a web developer, and then one night, actually on Holy Thursday, 2006, God came knocking again and said, you know what, time's up. And 3 months later, I sold my house in Baltimore and was down with the Paulist fathers. But I wasn't that yet sold. I said, all right, I'm ready to take that next step.
Okay.
Most spiritual journeys, we think we have to be all the way here. No, it's always a process.
Right.
So that's when I started writing a blog called Kicking and Screaming, because that pretty much described my spiritual states.
I love it now. Now I get it. Well, when you said that you got a tap on the shoulder, what was the feeling like? I mean, was it like hearing something, feeling something, or both?
I would say it was I would just say the best way I can describe it is more like a self-realization. It's not like I heard the clouds parted and say, you will do this.
Build an ark.
Build an ark. It wasn't build an ark. It's like, do you have any lotto numbers for me while you're giving me messages?
Just in case.
But it was just something, sometimes we've got things going on within us, and it's just this realization. And I think it's a very common thing just in this particular situation, and for this particular instance, it was like that on steroids.
I love it.
So it's one of those.
Now, were you religious as a young boy?
I was pretty religious. I wouldn't say I was.
Did your family go to church?
Our family went to church.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very common. We went to church. It was just like, you go to church on Sunday, you go to the diner after church, you get pancakes, then you go home, and then...
That's what you do.
That's what you do.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like we didn't have shrines in the house or anything like that. So it wasn't necessarily like that, but, it was just always kind of a part of life. And then, but I will say when I went to college, and one of the reasons I really love my experience at college at Loyola is they had a very strong commitment towards getting involved with those who were poor, like those who were struggling. So I was able to get involved in different homeless ministries, and I think that's when my faith really took a more practical dimension, a more human dimension. It wasn't. It was still going to church, and that's important. But it was like, okay, here's what you do for the rest of the week.
Okay, I get it.
One of the interesting ways we began as friends.
Yeah.
I inherited Father Tom.
You were an inheritance.
Father Joe Scott and I were friends at St. Paul Apostle Church.
Okay.
And as a Jewish chaplain, I invited this young lady who was a World War II nurse at the Veterans Home in West LA to come to my Sabbath service.
Right.
And she said, I'll have to ask my priest because I don't know if I can do that. I'm a Catholic.
Oh,
and I go to
that's
Mass every
funny.
day. And I said, well, who's your priest? She said, Father Joe Scott. And I said, well, he's going to be speaking and delivering the message Friday night. Why don't you come? And that began it. And then when Father Scott moved to San Francisco, I met Father Gibbons and immediately invited him to come to our National Cemetery and participate, honoring all of our veterans' families.
Wow.
And then when we had our interfaith Passover Seder, which was in our 56th year last year,
Wow.
we had leaders from every faith,
Right.
and Father Tom represented Catholicism. So it's a heavy burden that he carries very well.
Now, how young were you when you actually entered the priesthood?
I was 34 years old.
Oh, you were? Okay,
So,
okay.
right, it was either join the priesthood or wait one more year and I could run for president. Because,
What a difference.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, what a choice, God.
But since I wasn't, since I hadn't gotten my PAC money together, I said the priesthood might be a better, way to go.
How did your family feel about it? I'm just curious.
They were very supportive of it, and I think what I was very grateful for is they were supportive in whatever way that I did, as long as it was right for me. Some families, it's like the mom will be like, I have to have a son who's a priest, and they'll put that pressure on.
Right.
And then other families are not religious at all. They're
I
like,
want a doctor.
Good God,
Right,
right.
I want
And mine was just very supportive. I mean, I already had a life. I had a house. I had a job.
Right.
But I think they knew this was always something that was kind of tapping me on the shoulder. So I think they were very supportive that when the time came. My kind of rule for discernment is it's like it takes as long as it takes, because sometimes you got to take time to work stuff out.
That's right.
And then when it's time, it's time. So I think they were supportive and continue to be incredibly supportive.
How many years does it take to become a priest? I know it takes so many years to be a lawyer, doctor, an Indian chief, and you know what I'm saying.
Right. I would say, in my case, it took 6 years.
Okay.
So now I joined the religious community known as the Paulist Fathers.
Right.
There are other religious communities like the Franciscans, the Jesuits, and they have their own formation plan.
And why did you choose the Paulist?
That's a great question, because I usually have to explain this when I talk with people who went to Jesuit colleges and high schools, because I say I went to Loyola College, which is a Jesuit school, and I continue to have a great love for the Jesuits. Then I did Jesuit Volunteer Corps after that.
Okay.
And then all my spiritual directors were always Jesuits. But I always thought when I became a priest, I was going to be a Jesuit. If I was going to be a priest, I was going to be a Jesuit. But along the way, during those I don't want to call them lost years, but
I say definitive years.
Definitive years,
Yeah.
those in-between years.
Right.
I stumbled across the Paulist Fathers, and I was always interested in. I had this sense that if I become a priest, I wanted to. One, I was always interested in media, so I'd like to use media in some fashion, and I was always very interested in American history. And so when I found the Paulist Fathers, one, they had founded Paulist Productions in the 1960s. They founded Paulist Press.
They're very forward.
They're very forward-thinking. They had an internet ministry. But also the founder of the Paulist Fathers, we are the first men's Catholic religious community founded in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Isaac Hecker was born in New York City, because usually when we hear about these Catholic religious communities, they have their origins in Europe.
Right.
Usually.
A lot in France, a lot in Germany.
France, Germany,
Right.
Italy, where Isaac Hecker was born in New York City. And he started having like all these spiritual experiences that he didn't know what to do with. He didn't really have a language. So he actually went off and started hanging out with the New England Transcendentalists. So he's becoming friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson,
Oh, my
Henry
goodness.
David Thoreau.
Oh.
He knew Louisa May Alcott, author of Little Women, as
Right.
a child. And he's hanging around all these people. And I just thought it was fascinating. It's like, here are the people who are doing some of the early thinking of what it means to be an American. You know, Emerson with his individuality, and
Right.
Thoreau with... And wait, there's this guy who's hanging around them, hangs around them, and realizes, no, that's not really scratching my itch. I need to become a Catholic. Which at the time was the craziest thing anybody
my
could
goodness.
think to do,
Right.
because at that time, and we're talking like the 1840s, America was really considered to be a Protestant nation. It was, you come from England, and yes, we had freedom of religion, but
still,
they still kind of had that.
Right.
So, and then but what Isaac Hecker's insight was, no, there's actually a lot of Catholicism that can contribute to the American identity, and there's a lot of the American identity that can contribute to Catholicism, Catholic culture. So he founded the Paulist Fathers in 1858.
And what is the mission?
The mission of the Paulist Fathers is, I think we've always, the quick answer is giving the word a voice. So it's kind of like a focus on communication.
Say that again, Father Tom.
Giving the word a voice.
I like that.
Another way is old truths, new forms.
Old truths.
So that's kind of our motto.
Yeah.
But one of the things we usually try to focus on is where our interest is usually those what we call outside the Catholic community. So it's like a lot of priests and a lot of religious communities, as they should, their focus is how do we take care of our flock? How do we manage their spiritual being or help that flourish? Ours is, we're always looking outward. Who can we invite into the Catholic faith? Who, perfect example of just being here today. We do a lot of interfaith dialogue. So so it's very natural that we would be at a Seder. That's how we feel very at home.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things.
Tell everybody about the Seder.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention is my schooling was at Boston College, which is a Jesuit seminary.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There were 4 Jews in our class. And when people say, well, why would you do that?
Yes.
You're interested in being a rabbi, you're interested in being a chaplain. Right. I said, because Jews make up 2% of the country. If I don't learn how to deal with the other 98%,
you're going to be in trouble.
Then I'm only preaching to the choir, if you will. So I'd like to add a third. You had those 2 expressions. Yes. I'll give you another one. Yes. Since it was created, the Paulist order in the United States, you are the banjo of all of the musical religious instruments, which is the first instrument to be created in this country.
Yeah.
Good point.
There you go.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, everyone, that I had 2 poets here. I just, how many approximately do you have in the Paulist?
I think we're clocking in at a little over 100 right now. We've never been a huge religious community, so Jesuits and Franciscans and Dominicans, they're all over the world. They've got thousands and thousands. We've always been a really small community. So, you've got the Army, and then I like to think of ourselves as like the A-team. Just small,
Now, where is the focus? Is it out west here, Midwest, New York?
Actually, I would say all across the country. So our mother house is in New York City. We've had ministries here in LA since the 1920s.
Okay.
We're in Austin, Texas, San Francisco, Ohio, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Wow.
Chicago, and we are in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Boston. We have a big center in Boston.
And I have another question that you can research for me.
Sure.
Is, are there Paulists who are on active duty as chaplains in any of our branches of service?
You know what? Not currently, but we've had that history.
Okay.
So Father Tom Hall was a chaplain. He is now residing in Palm Springs. He is retired from chaplain ministry. The Paulist Fathers in World War II had the biggest percentage of our community serve as chaplains. So the most amount, percentage-wise, went to serve in some sort of the armed forces. And what was great, a project I got to work on when I was in seminary was a kind of a photo retrospective of the Paulist Fathers. And some of the best pictures we have are of Paulist Fathers on the battleship, celebrating Mass, or in
so they would wear
the
a
Pacific
uniform.
Theater. Oh, absolutely,
I love
in
that.
the Pacific Theater.
Right.
So we have a great history of that. But right at this moment, we don't have anyone in active.
But that's really
one of the
interesting.
things that Father Joe did for us at the Veterans Home is they had a Protestant chaplain, but when it came time to Ash Wednesday and to distribute ashes, or for midnight Mass for Easter or Christmas, we didn't have anyone. And I would call Father Joe, and he would come over and celebrate Mass.
Oh, wonderful.
And not only did we have a good number of residents, but I would say 85% of the employees were all of Catholic religious faith.
Right.
And it meant a lot to them to be able to have ashes put on without having to take off 3 hours and go find a church.
You're Director of Development and Production in the Paulist Church right now.
No, the Paulist Productions. Paulist Productions is our one of our media wings, shall we say, like our production studio.
And you have 2 documentaries.
That's correct. Well, one is actually a feature-length film that was released 30 years ago.
That's the second
that we
one,
re-released.
1989.
But
the first one is Dating.
The Dating Project.
I love this project, everyone. When I was reading it and all about your bio and stuff, it said dating is now really outdated in our country. And that's very interesting. Why do you say that?
Well, one of the things we've noticed, I always kind of feel funny being the priest talking about dating. What I hear on the street.
Let's get that straight, right? Okay.
I think I think I was talking to someone. It says, "You're the dating priest." It's like, no, don't say that. No, I'm not.
Don't let that get back to home.
Right, exactly. It's just over the past 20 or 30 years. Between like a balance of like hookup culture or just our preference for communicating electronically through text, the concept of dating has really fallen by the wayside, of even just casually dating. And it's to the point now that so many researchers are talking about that people don't go on dates anymore. It's like it's very funny.
Your iPhone to iPhone.
Your iPhone to iPhone, or you like someone and you just never think of going on a date, or if you go on a date, it means you're married.
No commitments.
There's no. It's just it's in terms of when I listen to my parents who grew up in the 50s and 60s talk about dating. It's like, oh yeah, we'd go out with that guy one night and that guy another night, and there was just kind of like more of like a healthy. Way of just kind of getting to know different people, and
that gave you the idea to do this particular project.
That's right. There was a producer named Megan Harrington who had been working on this project for a very long time, and she got in touch with a professor at Boston College, no less named Dr. Carrie Cronin, and she teaches a class on dating.
I love that.
And she literally does like, this is what a first date
Now, is
should
that
look
out
like.
now yet?
That is out. It can be, you can see it on Amazon Prime.
Everybody?
You can see it on iTunes.
Good.
If you go to thedatingprojectmovie.com, thedatingprojectmovie.com, you'll find all the links, and you'll find, you also find like a great worksheet about like the different levels of dating. And a great trailer and the links to of where to find
well, it sounds like fun and very interesting.
Yes.
And now we'd like to show a clip of the Dating Project.
What's really true about this assignment, I think, is that it's not so much about you falling in love. Mostly it's about experiencing the courage of stepping outside of the dominant social script of the hookup culture on college campuses. Here's the rules. 2 weeks. You have to ask somebody out in person. The person has to know it's a date. It's a date when it's just the 2 of you. This should be a level 1 date. This is important. The levels are important. The first level date should not cost more than $10. You ask, you pay. 90 minutes is as long as it should be. If the date's going well, I recommend getting out after 60 minutes. Because if you have a really good date for 60 minutes, then the chances are good that the person might actually want to go out with you again. But nobody's interesting after 3 hours. No one. And you should have a plan. This shouldn't be, what do you want to do? Don't put it on the other person. You take the responsibility. What else about a level 1 date? What do you know about it? Shanzi?
You can't have like physical interaction besides a hug.
Exactly. A-frame hug, meaning your shoulders are in, all other body parts are going out. There's also no what. This is important for college students.
Drugs or alcohol?
No drugs or alcohol of any sort. I usually tell people to try to have 3 or 4 questions thought up before they go into the date, but not more than that. Because if you go in with 13 or 14 questions, it just becomes an interrogation.
What if they say no?
Oh, what if they say no? Right. One of the things is that you need to know if you're gonna date successfully and well, you need to know how to move on. And this is not just if you get a no, but if you get a, oh, well, yeah, I'm really busy right now, can you check back with me? No checking back, move on to the next person.
That was fabulous. Let's go on a date.
I think that's how this whole thing
I
started.
know. Thank you. I also had, you're going to laugh because the word, I know what I mean, but sometimes I get the words kind of crazy. An epiphany. Epiphany of just something happening. And I went online, and the actual film, the documentary that about Archbishop, there's a documentary about Archbishop Oscar Romero.
Romero, correct.
And here's the line that just threw me. If they kill me, he said, a bishop will die. But I shall arise in the Salvadorian people, and the Church of God will never perish. Now, I'm of Jewish faith, okay?
Yep.
But as I wrote you, that was human to human to human to human.
Right.
And I must tell you, Father Tom, that just got me.
Yeah.
And I want to know more about this phenomenal Archbishop and what he went through.
Archbishop Romero was named an archbishop in El Salvador in the 1970s. And the funny thing about Archbishop Romero is that, and in El Salvador at that time, there was a lot of, and I know there's still a lot of troubles in El Salvador, but there was a lot of, best way to say it was like class warfare.
Yes.
It was there was a lot of violence, and it was the government going after the people and the people rebelling, and the church was very much involved in that, on both sides of that. And so there was tension all around. Wherever you went, there was going to be tension. And Archbishop Romero was named, Oscar Romero was named Archbishop of San Salvador, which is the capital of El Salvador, as kind of a compromise choice. It's like, he's kind of a quiet guy. He's not going to make any waves. He's just, he likes his books. He's just going to stay inside and do his books. And in many ways, he was someone who had a relationship with everybody in the diocese.
Right.
But what happened was one of his best friends was a Jesuit priest named Rutilio Grande. And Rutilio Grande was someone who was working with the poor and trying to really stand up for their rights.
Right.
And death squads actually had assassinated Rutilio Grande. And when Father Grande was killed, Oscar Romero had this conversion experience where he said, wait a minute, if I'm going to authentically live out my faith, then I can't just be standing back. I have to be standing up for the, and so he got more and more involved, and not necessarily in a violent way. He always, eschewed means to go against, right?
Right.
Okay, I don't want to, I don't want to say the wrong word and have it thing. But he always, eschewed violence and said, no, this is, if we're going to be faithful Christians, we all have to care about one another. Right. If we're going to be faithful human beings, we all have to care about one another. And whether we're rich or poor or whoever, but because he was getting more involved in the poor, he himself was eventually persecuted. He saw his friends killed, and then he himself was killed. So, and he was killed in 1980, in March of 1980. Father Bud Kaiser was the founder of Paulist Productions, and he had been doing this television program called Insight for 20 years on public access TV, and he heard about the story of Oscar Romero and said, like a good Hollywood producer,
Yeah.
this got to be a movie.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
spent the next 9 years of his life
Oh, my God.
getting people together, and he was finally able to sign Raul Julia, the great actor Raul
I know.
Julia, and created this really amazing film.
Well, is it out now?
It is out. So the film was created in 1989. So about around this time last year, just, you know, when you're
Right.
Catholic, you just read all these Catholic websites, you know. It's,
Right.
and so one of them said Oscar Romero is going to be, the actual Oscar Romero, not
Right.
the character, you know, is going to be canonized in
Oh,
Rome
okay.
in October. And so we realized, wow,
What
what
a
a great
time.
time
Right,
to
right.
re-release the film and really so we went through a remastering process,
Right.
like what they do with the old movie, like Gone with the Wind
Yes.
and Casablanca
Right.
and Lawrence of Arabia, remastered it into 4K, cleaned it up, got the audio back. So now it can be viewed on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can go watch it right now.
I'd like to show everyone a scene from Romero.
If they kill me, I shall arise in the Salvadoran people. A bishop will die, but the Church of God, which is the people, will never perish.
Okay. Wow. I think everyone out there has got to have the same reaction that I did when I saw that. And thank you for bringing it to life and bringing Oscar Romero, Archbishop, to life and being canonized. He deserves it, and all the things that he did. Well, also, I think it's time, Chaplain Dove, that we show Father Tom how we appreciate him.
I think that's a wonderful segue. Okay. One of the privileges that I have as the president of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation is working with people of all faiths, veterans from every walk of life. And when I have asked you to come and support our program and deliver an invocation or a benediction, be part of what we do, you have always been there for us. And in addition, the work that you do in the community. And so we started something new, and I want to be able to present you. We've never had a presentation coin from the cemetery in 100 years.
Oh my goodness.
We do now.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It gives me great privilege to present you with your very own edition
thank you so
of
much
the
for
Los
this.
Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation. We are one of 136 national cemeteries, and in this area of the country, we service Ventura, LA, Orange County, and San Diego County. And we thank you for what you have done for our community, what you do for the Catholic Church, but what you do for all of us.
Well, thank you. I mean, this is a great honor because, I never had served in the military myself, but it's been just a great honor and opportunity just to be able to honor those who have served. So, really, thank you for this.
And you do it so well because, I mean, I get feedback from everybody who's there. You know, World War II vets, Pearl Harbor, Tuskegee Airmen, they're critics.
Oh, that.
And they really like you. So,
thank you so much. This is really wonderful.
Please accept this.
Thank you so much.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't know where time goes, but it just goes. You are a delightful gentleman.
Oh, thank you.
You're a beautiful person, inside and out. And if other Paulist priests are listening or seeing what's going on today with you, I know that they're saying, you go, Father Tom, you go. And I want you to know that I am privileged to know you, not only just know you as someone who helps our community, but as a friend. And that makes me feel really good. I know that Chaplain Dove and I adore you. And I want to say thank you with all my heart, because I believe that you give more than you get.
Oh, thank you.
And I thank you for that. Right?
That sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We'll be right back.
I'm gonna live.
What do you think of the show?
I thought it was marvelous.
Oh my gosh, it was so inspirational and it was so entertaining.
I was so impressed with all the talent.
But what comes to mind immediately, I think of Tony Bennett, Lena Horne, Angela Lansbury, all of these people who are seniors, and hey, the sky's the limit.
It was a wonderful show, and I enjoyed it immensely. We enjoyed it, my wife and I, immensely.
I'm so used to that. Hi, everyone. We are back. And we're back with music. I mean, I can hear this music, and it is fabulous. And where is it coming from? It's coming from the 300th Army Band with Mr. Jeff Smith. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I first met you when we did America Salutes Our Veterans.
Right.
You came on stage and you sang a most phenomenal patriotic song.
The national anthem.
I think it
Right.
was an anthem.
And I was, first of all, I was blown away because I think you did it a cappella.
Yes.
And I said, wow, because to me, anyone that can do that, I mean, is
And
top
the other
A.
thing was that we had, it's a 1,300-seat theater,
Right.
and it was packed.
Mm-hmm.
Every seat was taken, and you were really well received. You came out in uniform.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
I was in uniform, and I looked out in the audience, and there were a lot of people in uniform.
Yeah, that was a great event.
Yeah.
You are a musician, a producer, arranger, a teacher, a vocalist, also a vocal percussionist. What is that?
Well, so you may have heard the phrase beatboxing or those kinds of things.
Yeah, what is that?
So it's basically the art of creating percussion sounds and other sound effects with your voice and with your mouth. And so that's a skill that I started getting into in college. In my college a cappella group, we were singing a song one day, and somebody said, "Wow, this would be a lot cooler if somebody could like make some drum sounds." And so I just sort of raised my hand and said, "I'll figure out how to do it." And then that just sort of took me down this path of kind of discovering what beatboxing was and vocal percussion, and now it's actually something that I get paid to do once in a while.
Well, when I saw beatboxing, I said, "What does he do? Beat up a box?" I'm going. It's a strange combination of a word. But give us an idea of what you do.
Yeah. So it would sound something like this.
Woo!
That kind of thing. So that's just a little sample, but you can start with just a few sounds, and then you can develop those sounds and grow like a palette of kind of like a drum kit. You learn to play a drum kit, but you learn to make those sounds with your voice.
So you have to train your tongue and to move certain way.
Yep.
Who teaches you that?
You just have to practice, just like anything else. Yeah. I mean, and nowadays, you can go online and find all kinds of tutorials about how to make different kinds of sounds with your mouth and with your voice and.
But in those days, no.
But yeah, there was no YouTube then, so I just kind of figured it out on my own then. Yeah.
Now, do many people know how to do that? I mean.
Well, it's something that's growing in popularity for sure, especially with the kind of ubiquity of a cappella music with things like pitch perfect movies and pentatonics and all of these things which have grown in popularity over the last 4 or 5 years. You're seeing more people who are also interested in beatboxing and other sort of vocal art forms.
Okay, I know that we know what it is, and I know that 90% might know what it is, but maybe that's 10% who don't. A cappella. The meaning of a cappella.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the literal meaning is a Latin term meaning in the style of the chapel. So it comes from the idea of, dating back to medieval times when there either weren't instruments available or for certain services they simply performed music in church or in the chapel or in the chapel side of the cathedral, and they would do that without an organ. They would do it without musical instruments, and so that kind of became where we derive the current sort of art form of a cappella is really any kind of music that is created using just the human voice, and so that can take on a lot of different forms these days.
I would say.
To include learning how to make instrumental sounds with your voice and using electronic enhancement and amplification and all of these things to kind of create an experience that feels like a full band, but is really just being created by the human voice.
What type, when you were in college, you had a group called Measure by Measure?
Measure by Measure.
Measure by Measure.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, what did they do?
Well, honestly, it was just 8 guys who wanted to. We were all in the music department together in college, and some of us weren't even really in the vocal music department. Okay. We were all in the marching band together, but we also liked to sing.
Now, what do you play?
Well, so I played in college. I actually went to college at the University of Kansas on a bassoon scholarship.
Yeah, you got to tell us that. First of all, what is a bassoon?
The bassoon is primarily an orchestral instrument. It's a double reed instrument, bass, tenor, range instrument. It's primarily used in orchestra setting, also in wind band, concert band setting, that sort of thing.
And how old were you when you started that?
6th grade.
I mean, to get a scholarship, you had to be, quote unquote, really good.
Well, and my dad was a band director, so when I was old enough to join the band, he told me that I was going to play the bassoon, and that's certainly not something I would have chosen for myself.
Right.
It's really a pretty it's a pretty sadistic thing to have your child have to play the.
Is it big?
It's big and it's very cumbersome, and the fingerings are really difficult. There are 13 thumb keys just for the thumb. So you can get the idea just how complicated it is. But I stuck with it, I learned it, and that was kind of what got me through college, and also what got me into the Army.
Oh my! And how long were you in the Army?
Still am in the Army. So I'm in the Army Reserve currently. I joined right out of high school. Actually, so in high school, I found out that in the town where I lived and where I was planning to go to
Right.
college, there was an Army Reserve band in town, and they approached me and said, "Hey, we are looking for a bassoonist. Would you be willing to audition? And is this something you would consider?" And I had never even thought of it, never even considered it. But I decided I would give it a shot, so I went and auditioned, got the audition and passed the audition, I should say, and within a few weeks I was enlisted and off to basic training, and off I went.
And then during that time, is that when you started to like just do a band? I mean, in the Army? Or?
Yeah, so it was an Army Reserve band, much like the one I'm in here in LA, but it was in Kansas where I was living. So that summer after high school, went to basic training, went to AIT, and then I was back in school by my fall semester for my freshman year of college. So, and then have been in the reserves ever since.
Wow, and
So
playing ever since.
Yeah, and playing ever since, and that's really where I kind of got involved in vocal music and in a cappella music in particular, was with the group at school.
Did you
college.
sing always?
Yeah, I did. I really always had an enjoyment of singing, and I sang as a youngster, sang in church choirs, that sort of thing, but didn't really start taking it seriously until I got into high school. It was in kind of the select honor choir in high school, and then on into college. Kind of set aside singing for a little bit to focus on instrumental music and my studies there, but then kind of got the bug to start singing again. And the University of Kansas, where I attended, had a great choral music program, and it was at the time led by a gentleman named Simon Carrington, who was a founding member of a famous vocal group called the King Singers.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So he was on faculty there at the University of Kansas, and he sort of encouraged me to continue pursuing opportunities to sing, and especially small group singing, small group harmony singing, and a cappella music and that sort of thing. And so that's what gave me the idea to start a group on my own, and that's just kind of where it all started.
Yeah, and what kind of instruments do you play now? I mean, you play the bassoon, I get that. Any other instruments?
I play piano a little bit. I play guitar very little bit. Because a bassoon is not a marching instrument, along the way I had to pick up an instrument to play for marching band, and so I learned to play the tuba, sousaphone, for marching purposes.
That's a big one.
It is, yeah. And nothing like the bassoon at all, but it gave me an opportunity to be in the marching band as well.
And how did you come to being the commander and conductor of the 300th Army Band?
Well, so the 300th Army Band, as you mentioned, is a band here in the Los Angeles area.
Right.
It's an Army Reserve band, 40 members approximately.
40 members.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And when I moved from Kansas to Los Angeles, I literally just kind of went on the internet and said, where is the nearest Army Reserve band that I can transfer to? And at the time I was a non-commissioned officer, enlisted, and found the 300th and said, great, I would like to transfer to them. And just over time, the commander of the unit at the time decided that he was going to retire. And so he approached me and asked if I would be interested in applying to become a warrant officer, and become a candidate to take over as the commander of the unit.
Oh my goodness,
So
how long ago was that?
That
Jeff?
was in 2011.
2011.
Okay. Can you explain to the viewing audience the difference between enlisted, an officer, and a warrant officer?
Well, these days there's not a whole lot of difference between a warrant officer and what we call a regular officer or a commissioned officer, because now warrant officers are commissioned. But typically, the main difference is that warrant officers tend to specialize in one particular area, where the regular officer route, where you come in as a second lieutenant and work your way up, you take on broader and broader assignments. And really, as a warrant officer, although we have our own career track where you start as a warrant officer 1 and you can work your way all the way up to warrant officer 5, typically that stays within that same area of expertise. So in my case, it would be music. And so that's why they, for the most part, Army bands are conducted and commanded by warrant officers. There are some exceptions to that. There's some of the larger bands have captains or lieutenant colonels or colonels.
How many times a week do you get together with your 300th Army Band?
Well,
and how many events do you do?
Right. So, like most Army Reserve units, we typically meet about one weekend a month, and then we do a 2-week tour in the summer. And But in between those monthly weekends, we often get requests for other events. So we will often send a small group out to perform for a community event of some kind, or maybe a military ceremony of some kind.
Still under the auspices of the 300,000 band.
That's right. So we have 40 members, but we can go out as smaller teams and smaller ensembles. Sometimes as soloists. I occasionally will go out, as you mentioned, I'll go out and perform as a solo national anthem singer for a variety of events. And so anyway, that's kind of how
that's exciting. The other thing is that you're doing, I mean, first of all, Jeff has 4 children and a lovely wife, Heather, and the 300th band, but he also has a group called Impact.
Right.
Tell us about that group.
Well, so Impact is a professional a cappella vocal group based here in the Los Angeles area.
It says rock solid grooves, the art of the a cappella rhythm section.
Right.
Ooh, what is all that mean?
Well, so like any pop or jazz ensemble, a pop a cappella group also has a rhythm section. So it's a vocal percussionist and a vocal bass, and those 2 instruments work together much like a rhythm section would in a band.
Get it.
And so that's a concept that we have developed in Impact. We didn't invent it, but it's a concept that we have my fellow bass singer in Impact named Tracy. We often will go to festivals and to conventions, where they specialize in a cappella music, and we'll teach this to other a cappella music.
We're going to show you that group right now.
Things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? When you see it your way, at the risk of knowing that our love may still be gone, we can work it out. We can work it out. Think of what you're saying. You can get it wrong and still you think that it's alright. Think of what I'm saying. You can work it out and get it straight or say goodnight. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friends. I have always thought that it's a crime, so I will ask you once again. Try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. Why you see it your way? There's a chance that we may fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out. Things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? When I see things your way, at the risk of knowing that our love would soon be gone, we can work it out. We can work it out. Try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. When you see it your way, there's a chance that we may fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out. We can work it out. Yeah, we work it out. We can work it
They were great.
It's a pleasure to be a part of such a fantastic group.
And how long has the group been together?
The group has been together since 1995.
Oh, wow.
So
they look so young.
well, and they're none of the original members are now currently part of the band.
Say,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So we are now actually within the last 3 years, the final 2 founding members of the band retired from the group. And kind of left it in my hands to continue on the tradition. Wow. And so I'm very honored to be able to do that. The group has a long legacy that we are excited to continue. And we're also, as you mentioned, we brought in some great young talent who are interested in exploring new directions that we can take the group as well. So lots to be excited about for the future of Impact.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to take a moment to do, we met because of your involvement with the Los Angeles National Cemetery.
Right. Yep.
And you have provided and enhanced our programs for a number of years, for which we're very grateful. And because of that, and because now as the president of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation, we created what we choose to call a presentation coin. In the military, we call them challenge coins. And I would like to present you with one on behalf of the Board of Directors for all of the great music that you've brought to enhance our programs. And we're looking forward to seeing you again on Memorial Day this year.
We're looking forward to it as well.
Please accept that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And now, I would like to hear a few songs, Jeff. We'll be right back.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. I'll be sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Yes, I'll be sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, I headed for the Frisco Bay. I've got nothing left to live for, looks like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'll be sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Yes, I'll be sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Looks like nothing's gonna change, everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Yes, I'll be sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. It's 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home. So I'll be sitting at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Yes, I'll be sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Yes. More. Oh, please. I love it. Wow.
If tomorrow all the things were gone that I worked for all my life, and if I had to start again with just my children and my wife,
I thank my lucky stars to be living here today. And the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I proudly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Ooh. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I proudly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I proudly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
Whoa, 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 whoa. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. First of all, I know everyone in that audience out there has a lump in the throat, as I do. Where can one know where the 300th band will be playing and Impact? I mean, how do they find out?
Well, sure. So for Impact, please go to m-pact.com. You can see our tour schedule there. And for the 300th Army Band, we also have a website, 300tharmyband.com. And you can even see us coming up at the LA National Cemetery on Memorial Day, 10 a.m. We'd love to see you there.
Wow. Well, I want you to know how proud I am to say thank you for your service.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do for us here with your band and everything. And I have to tell you, God bless you.
Same to
Jeff
you.
Smith, everyone knows what I love to say about someone as good as you are. A gentleman for all seasons and definitely for all reasons. God bless you.
Same to you.
See you next time.
Ain't gonna miss a thing. I'm gonna have my fling.
You are
Gonna
fabulous.
live until I die.